Captain Jack Reed stared at the alien armada through the view screen of the UES Defiant. 47 warships against his lone vessel. The Vex Empire had finally found humanity, and they'd come with overwhelming force, or so they thought. "They're broadcasting, Captain," said Lieutenant Emma Cole, communications officer. Her fingers glided over the holographic interface. "Let's hear it," Reed ordered, squaring his shoulders. The alien commander appeared on screen. Tall and insectoid. With multiple compound eyes, its mandibles clicked as it spoke through a translation matrix. "Human vessel. You have been found. Your species will be assimilated or eliminated. Surrender your vessel and prepare for boarding." Reed exchanged glances with his first officer, Commander Tom Harris. Typical. They always assume superior numbers mean superior capability. Harris nodded. They've never faced a human warship before. The Vex had been a plague on this sector for centuries, conquering and absorbing dozens of species. Humanity had remained hidden in their corner of the galaxy until now, developing their technology in isolation. The Defiant wasn't just a warship, it was humanity's masterpiece, incorporating technologies that the Vex couldn't begin to comprehend. "Response, Captain?" Emma asked. Reed smiled grimly. "Tell them we respectfully decline their generous offer." Emma transmitted the message. The Vex commander's compound eyes flashed with what might have been confusion or anger. "You have one planetary rotation to reconsider," the alien warned, "or we will take your ship by force." The transmission ended. "They're scanning us," reported Lieutenant Dave West from the tactical station, "trying to analyze our capabilities." "Let them look," Reed said. "They won't understand what they're seeing." The Defiant's quantum mesh hull appeared to Vex scanners as a simple metallic construction, hiding its true nature. The dimensional inversion drive, the probability cannons, the consciousness-linked defense systems, all invisible to conventional scans. Reed called a meeting of his senior officers in the command center. Around the tactical table stood his core team: Harris, Emma, Dave, Chief Engineer Maria Torres, and Science Officer Alan Blake. "Options?" Reed asked. "We could run," Harris suggested. "The inversion drive could have us halfway across the galaxy before they even noticed we'd gone." "And lead them straight to Earth?" Emma countered. "Not an option." Maria leaned forward. "The Defiant was built for this moment, Captain. We've spent decades preparing for first contact with the Vex. This ship represents the best of human ingenuity, and they've given us time," Dave added. "We can use that to our advantage." Alan nodded. "Their technology is impressive by most standards, but predictable. They've conquered through superior numbers, not innovation. We've studied their attack patterns from the data gathered by our deep space probes." Reed considered their input. "The Vex Empire has terrorized this sector for too long. They want war. We'll show them why that was a mistake." "Sir?" Emma's voice was quiet but firm. "The Arcturus Protocol." The room fell silent. The Arcturus Protocol was their last resort. A weapon system so advanced it bordered on the impossible. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Reed said. "But if it does, we'll be ready." The meeting ended with detailed assignments. As the officers dispersed, Reed remained at the tactical table studying the Vex fleet configuration. "They have no idea what they're facing," Harris said, pausing at the door. Reed looked up, his eyes reflecting the holographic display of the enemy armada. "No, they don't." Beyond the viewports, stars glittered coldly in the void. Somewhere among them, 47 Vex warships waited, confident in their superiority. They would learn their mistake soon enough. Dawn cycle aboard the Defiant found the crew methodically preparing for battle. The ship hummed with controlled activity, weapon systems checked, defense grids aligned, the quantum mesh hull resonating at precisely calculated frequencies. In Dawi, engineering, Maria Torres guided her team through final diagnostics on the inversion drive. "All systems optimal, Chief," reported technician Paul Walker. "Dimensional stability at 99.8%. Maria nodded approvingly. "The Vex won't know what hit them when we phase between their formation." Meanwhile, on the bridge, Reed reviewed tactical simulations with Dave. Their attack patterns are predictable, Dave explained, manipulating the holographic display. They'll form a hemisphere around us, then close in like a net. The simulation showed red dots surrounding a single blue one, then converging. And, when they do, Reed prompted. Dave grinned. That's when we spring the trap. The Defiant's hull will absorb their initial energy weapons, then we activate the probability cannons. Reed nodded. The probability cannons were perhaps humanity's most revolutionary weapon. They didn't fire energy or projectiles, but altered the quantum probability of target areas. Matter itself became unstable, atoms losing their cohesion. Status of the consciousness link, Reed asked. Ready, sir, Emma replied from her station. All crew members have been synchronized with the neural network. The consciousness link was what truly set the Defiant apart. Unlike conventional warships where crew members operated controls, the Defiant's crew connected directly to the ship's systems through neural interfaces. In battle, they wouldn't just operate the ship. They would become the ship, their collective consciousness directing its actions with precision impossible through physical controls. At the science station, Alan monitored the Vex fleet. Their repositioning, Captain. Classic encirclement formation. Right on schedule, Reed observed. They'll want to intimidate us first. Show of force. As if on cue, the communication system activated. The Vex commander appeared on screen. Again. Your time to consider our generous offer has expired, humans. Prepare to be boarded or destroyed. Reed rose from his command chair. We've considered your offer carefully, and I have a counter-proposal. The alien's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. You are in no position to negotiate, human. That's where you're wrong, Reed replied calmly. You see, you've made a critical error. You've mistaken our solitude for weakness, our single ship for vulnerability. The Vex commander's compound eyes gleamed. 47 warships against your one. Mathematics does not lie. No, it doesn't, Reed agreed, but it does require proper variables, and you're missing quite a few in your calculation. Before the alien could respond, Reed gave a subtle nod to Emma, who terminated the transmission. All stations, battle readiness, Reed ordered. Initiate consciousness link in 60 seconds. Around the bridge, crew members secured themselves in their specialized stations. Neural interface crowns lowered automatically, connecting each officer to the ship's systems. Consciousness link initializing, reported the ship's AI. Neural synchronization at 94% and rising. Reed felt the familiar sensation of his mind expanding, connecting first with the ship's systems, then with the consciousness of his crew. Individual thoughts blended into a harmonious whole, focused on a single purpose. Through the view screen, they watched the Vex fleet begin to move. Massive warships, bristling with conventional weapons, formed a perfect hemisphere around the Defiant. They're charging weapons. Dave's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere as the consciousness link solidified. Let them fire first, Reed thought, and felt the crew's agreement ripple through the shared consciousness. The Vex ships opened fire simultaneously, energy beams converging on the Defiant from all directions, and then the real battle would begin. The barrage of energy weapons struck the Defiant's quantum mesh hull and seemed to simply vanish. No explosions, no damage reports, just a slight shimmer across the ship's surface as the hull absorbed and redistributed the energy. On the Vex, command ship, Admiral Krall clicked his mandibles in confusion. Impossible, he chittered to his subordinates. Scan again. But the scan showed the same impossible result. The human vessel remained intact, its hull temperature barely elevated. Aboard the Defiant, the crew consciousness processed this information with cool efficiency. They were no longer individuals but a single entity, perfectly synchronized with the ship's systems. They're confused, Emma's thought rippled through the shared mind. Preparing second volley. Now, Reed commanded through the link. Initiate Phase 1. The Defiant's engines flared, not with conventional thrust, but with a reality-distorting field that momentarily shifted the vessel partially out of normal space. To the Vex, it appeared as if the human ship simply winked out of existence. Aboard the lead Vex ship, panic ensued. "Where did they go?" Admiral Krall demanded. His question was answered when the Defiant reappeared directly behind one of the Vex cruisers. The probability cannons fired, not beams or projectiles, but rippling waves of altered quantum states. Where these waves touched the Vex ship, matter simply disagreed with itself. Atomic bonds weakened, molecular structures collapsed. The Vex cruiser didn't explode. It disintegrated, coming apart like sand caught in a gentle breeze. Before the Vex fleet could respond, the Defiant phased again, reappearing at a different position. Another Vex ship succumbed to the probability cannons. Through the consciousness link, the crew of the Defiant operated with perfect synchronicity. The ship moved not like a vessel, but like a predator, deliberate, efficient, lethal. They're attempting to adapt. Alan's thought flowed through the link, modifying their shields to counter the probability effect. Reed accessed the ship's deep analytics through the neural interface. Adjust frequency. They can't shield against what they don't understand. The Defiant shifted again, appearing within the Vex formation. This time 3 probability cannons fired simultaneously, each targeting a different vessel. The results were the same. 3 more Vex ships dissolved into constituent particles. Admiral Krall was no fool. Seeing his fleet being decimated by incomprehensible technology, he ordered a tactical retreat. The remaining Vex ships began pulling back, attempting to regroup at a safer distance. "They're retreating," Harris observed through the link. "Shall we pursue?" Reed considered. The Defiant could easily hunt down each retreating vessel, but that wasn't the objective. "No, let them run. Phase 2. The crew consciousness understood immediately. The Defiant powered down its offensive systems and instead directed energy to the communications array. Emma, through the link, broadcast on all Vex frequencies. "This was merely a demonstration. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but chose not to. Return to your empire with this message. Humanity is not to be trifled with. Any further aggression will be met with total response." To emphasize the point, the Defiant fired its probability cannons once more, not at a ship, but at an uninhabited asteroid in the nearby field. The massive rock, kilometers across, simply ceased to exist. The message complete, Reed ordered the consciousness link to disengage. One by one, the crew members returned to their individual awareness, the neural interfaces retracting. "Status report," Reed ordered, once again speaking aloud. 47 Vex ships arrived. Dave reported from Tactical. 7 have been neutralized. The remaining 40 are retreating at maximum speed. Reed nodded. "Any damage to the Defiant?" "Minimal power consumption," Maria reported from engineering. "Hull integrity at 99.9%. We could do this all day, Captain." "Let's hope we don't have to," Reed responded. "Monitor their communications. I want to know their next move." As the adrenaline of battle began to subside, the crew exchanged glances of quiet pride. Their first encounter with the feared Vex Empire had gone better than anyone could have hoped, but Reed wasn't celebrating yet. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "And next time, they'll bring more ships." Harris nodded grimly. "But now they know what one human ship can do." "That's what worries me," Reed replied. "We've shown our hand. The element of surprise is gone." The Vex fleet continued its retreat, disappearing into the darkness of space. The battle was over, but Reed knew the war had just begun. Admiral Krall faced the Imperial Council through the quantum link, his compound eyes downcast in shame. The 7-member council, representatives of the original Vex hive minds, chittered their displeasure. 47 warships, hissed Counselor. Vex Thar. Our finest battle group, and you return with 40, having accomplished nothing. The human vessel. Krall began. Is one ship, interrupted Counselor Vex Morta. Against 47, the mathematics should have been overwhelming. Krall's mandibles clicked nervously. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered. They have weapons that alter reality itself, defenses that absorb energy attacks without damage. The council members exchanged glances. This was unprecedented. In thousands of cycles of expansion, the Vex Empire had conquered hundreds of species, all eventually falling to superior numbers and relentless aggression. "Tell us everything," ordered the head counselor. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiant, Reed called his senior officers for a debriefing in the conference room. "The good news is we've demonstrated our capabilities," Reed began. "The probability cannons worked exactly as designed. The bad news," Harris continued, "is that they now know what we can do. The element of surprise is gone." Maria nodded grimly. "And they'll adapt. The Vex are known for assimilating technologies they encounter." "Can they replicate our systems?" Reed asked Alan. The science officer shook his head. "Not without understanding the underlying principles. The quantum mesh hull requires materials they don't have access to. The consciousness link needs human, neural patterns, but they'll develop countermeasures." "How soon will they return?" Reed asked. Emma spoke up. "We've been monitoring their communications. They're calling for reinforcements. Hundreds of ships." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Defiant was powerful, but not invincible. "Options?" Reed asked. "We could return to Earth," Harris suggested. "Bring the fleet. Meet them with equal numbers." Reed shook his head. "That would lead them directly to humanity. No, we need to resolve this here." "The Arcturus Protocol," Dave said quietly. Again, silence fell over the room. The Arcturus Protocol was their ultimate weapon, a system designed to create a localized dimensional inversion, not merely destroying matter but removing it from this reality entirely. "That's a last resort," Reed said firmly. "Let's explore other options first." The meeting continued, plans formulated and discarded. Eventually, Reed settled on a strategy. The Defiant would not wait for the Vex reinforcements to arrive. Instead, they would take the fight directly to the heart of enemy territory. "We'll use the inversion drive to jump directly to their command center," Reed explained. "Strike at their leadership, force negotiations rather than annihilation." "That's deep in Vex territory," Emma pointed out. "We'd be surrounded by thousands of ships." "Which is why they won't expect it," Reed replied. "The Vex think in terms of overwhelming force. They don't understand surgical strikes. The plan was audacious, perhaps even reckless. But the alternatives, retreat or genocide, were unacceptable. As the meeting concluded, Reed remained behind with Harris. "You disagree with the plan," Reed observed. Harris hesitated. "It's extraordinarily risky. If the consciousness link fails, while we're in their territory, we'd be stranded." "I know," Reed acknowledged. "But this isn't just about survival anymore. It's about establishing humanity's place in the galaxy. If we retreat, we'll be running forever. If we annihilate them, we become the monsters." Harris nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you're right. The crew will follow you, whatever."
"You decide?" Reed gazed out at the stars through the conference room viewport. Somewhere out there, the Vex were gathering their forces, preparing for what they thought would be an overwhelming assault. They were about to learn another hard lesson.
"About humanity. Prepare the ship," Reed ordered. "We jump in 6 hours." The dimensional inversion drive hummed with controlled power as the Defiant prepared for its most daring maneuver yet. Unlike conventional faster-than-light travel, the inversion drive didn't move through space. It folded space around the ship, effectively relocating the vessel instantaneously. "Coordinates locked on Vex Prime," Alan reported from the science station. "Their homeworld." Reed nodded grimly. "Status of the consciousness link?" "Ready, Captain," Emma replied. "Neural synchronization optimized for combat operations. Around the bridge, crew members secured themselves in their stations. This would be their most challenging link yet. Not just operating the ship in battle, but navigating the dimensional shift while maintaining neural cohesion." "Engineering reports." "Ready?" Maria's voice came over the comm. "Inversion matrix stable. Reed took a deep breath. Initiate consciousness link. Prepare for dimensional inversion on my mark. The neural interfaces lowered, connecting each crew member to the ship's systems and to each other. Individual consciousness merged into a collective mind, thoughts flowing, like water between crew and ship. Through the link, Reed felt the readiness of his crew, their determination, their fear, their resolve. "Mark," Reed commanded through the shared consciousness. Reality twisted around the Defiant. Stars smeared into streaks of light, then vanished altogether as the ship briefly existed in a non-space between dimensions. For an instant that felt both infinitesimal and eternal. The crew consciousness experienced the impossible. Existence outside conventional reality. Then, with a silent flash, the Defiant reappeared in normal space, directly in orbit around Vex Prime. The massive planet loomed before them, its surface a lattice of artificial structures. In orbit, a defensive fleet of hundreds of warships maintained vigilant watch, none of them expecting an enemy vessel to suddenly appear in their midst. "We have achieved orbital insertion," came the collective thought through the link. "Vex, defense fleet detecting our presence." Through the consciousness link, the crew processed the tactical situation instantaneously. 217 Vex warships in orbit, planetary defense systems powering up, confusion rippling through Vex communications as they detected the impossible. A human vessel in their most secure space. "Broadcast the message," Reed directed through the link. Emma's consciousness channeled the prepared communication, broadcasting it across all Vex frequencies. "Attention Vex Imperial Council. This is Captain Jack Reed of the United Earth ship, Defiant. We have bypassed your entire defense network to demonstrate a simple truth. Nowhere in your empire is beyond our reach. We seek diplomatic contact, not war. You have one planetary rotation to respond before we take further action." The message sent, Reed directed the Defiant to maintain position, shields at maximum. Through the link, the crew felt the Vex response. Panic, outrage, confusion. Warships began to move, attempting to surround the human vessel. "They're mobilizing." Dave's thought rippled through the collective. "Defense platforms targeting us." "Hold position," Reed commanded. "No offensive action unless fired upon." The standoff continued for several tense minutes as the Vex struggled to comprehend the situation. A lone alien vessel had penetrated their most secure defenses, appeared without warning above their homeworld, and now hovered there, making demands, rather than attacking. Finally, a response came through. "Human vessel, the Imperial Council will meet with your representative, transmitting coordinates for approach." Through the consciousness link, the crew analyzed the coordinates, a massive structure in the northern hemisphere of Vex Prime. "It could be a trap," Harris thought. "Almost certainly," Reed acknowledged. "But it's also an opportunity. We'll proceed, with caution." The Defiant began its descent through the atmosphere, consciousness link maintaining perfect control as the ship navigated through increasingly dense defensive networks. Escort vessels surrounded them, weapons primed but not firing. Landing coordinates approached, a vast platform extending from what appeared to be the Imperial Palace. The Defiant settled onto the platform with precise control, its quantum mesh hull shimmering slightly in the alien sunlight. "Prepare a security team," Reed ordered as the consciousness link began to disengage. "Harris, you have the bridge. If this goes badly, execute the Arcturus protocol and get the ship out of here." As the neural interfaces retracted and individual consciousness returned, Reed stood from his command chair. "Time to meet our hosts," he said, straightening his uniform. The airlock cycled, and Captain Jack Reed stepped onto the soil of Vex Prime, the first human ever to set foot on the homeworld of humanity's most dangerous enemy. The Imperial Council chamber was vast, designed to intimidate with towering ceilings and columns inscribed with the conquest history of the Vex Empire. Captain Reed, flanked by Alan and Emma, stood before the 7 counselors who perched on elevated platforms, their compound eyes gleaming in the dim light. "You have violated our sovereign space," began Counselor Vexithar, mandibles clicking with agitation. "Defied our forces, destroyed our ships, And now you demand diplomacy? Reed stood tall, unflinching. We didn't start this conflict. Your ships entered our territory, demanded our surrender, and threatened our destruction. We merely demonstrated that such actions have consequences. Head Counselor Vex Morta leaned forward. Your species was unknown to us until recently. A curious anomaly. A technologically advanced civilization that had somehow avoided detection. Not avoided. Reed corrected. Chosen isolation. We observed your empire's expansion, your treatment of other species. We chose to remain apart, and yet here you stand, another counselor noted. One ship against an empire. One ship was sufficient, Reed replied calmly. The statement hung in the air, its implication clear. If one human vessel could penetrate to the heart of Vex territory, what could a fleet do? What is it you want, human? Vex Morta asked. Recognition and respect, Reed answered. A formal acknowledgement of human territory and sovereignty. A non-aggression pact. The counselors conferred among themselves, a chittering cascade of alien language. Finally, Vex Morta addressed Reed again. What assurance do we have that humanity will honor such an agreement? That you won't use your impressive technology or to expand at our expense? The same assurance we have from you, Reed replied. Mutual benefit. The galaxy is vast. There's no need for conflict if boundaries are respected. More conferring among the counselors. Reed remained patient, though he could feel tension building in his security team. Through their discreet comms, he knew the Defiant remained on high alert, consciousness link ready to reactivate instantly if needed. We will consider your proposal, Vex Morta finally announced. You will remain as our guest while we deliberate. Reed recognized the implied threat. I appreciate your hospitality, but I must decline. I will return to my ship. You have 12 standard hours to reach a decision. You dictate terms to us? Here? In the heart of our empire? Vexithar's mandibles clicked furiously. I offer a path. To peace, Reed clarified. The alternative is unpleasant for all involved. Back aboard the Defiant, the senior officers gathered in the conference room as Reed briefed them on the council meeting. They're stalling, Harris concluded, probably bringing in reinforcements. Agreed, Reed said, but they're also genuinely rattled. We've done something they thought impossible. Scans show increased activity in the orbital defense grid, Dave reported. They're enhancing their positions. Reed nodded thoughtfully. As expected, they won't roll over easily. Can we maintain our advantage if they attack? Maria asked. For a time, Alan answered. But eventually sheer numbers would overwhelm even our defenses. Which brings us back to the Arcturus Protocol, Emma said quietly. Reed paced the conference room, weighing their options. The protocol is a last resort. If we deploy it here at their homeworld. He didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone knew what the Arcturus Protocol would do. Create a dimensional inversion that would remove Vex Prime from reality. Billions would cease to exist in an instant. There has to be another way, Reed insisted. The hours passed tensely. Scans showed more Vex warships arriving in the system with each passing minute. The defensive grid around the planet grew increasingly formidable. With 1 hour remaining before their deadline, a communication arrived from the Imperial Council. They're requesting your presence again, Captain, Emma reported. The Council has reached a decision. Reed nodded grimly. Let's hope it's the right one. As he prepared to return to the surface, Reed gave Harris final instructions. If I don't return in 1 hour, or if they make any aggressive move against the ship, execute the Arcturus Protocol. Harris nodded solemnly. Understood, Captain. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Reed stepped into the transport shuttle, his mind heavy with the weight of what was to come. The fate of 2 civilizations, perhaps even the galaxy, hung in the balance. Captain Reed stood once more before the Imperial Council, alone this time. The chamber seemed different, the lighting dimmer, the counselors more subdued. Captain Reed, began Vex Morta without preamble, we have studied your vessel during your brief stay on our world. Reed remained expressionless, though internally he'd expected this. And what have you learned? Enough to know that your technology is beyond our current understanding, the head counselor admitted. Your dimensional manipulation, your consciousness interface, systems, your probability weapons, these are not merely advanced versions of known science. They represent entirely new paradigms. That's correct, Reed acknowledged. More importantly, Vex Morta continued, we've calculated the implications. Should your species deploy these technologies on a larger scale? The council room fell silent. Reed waited patiently. The Vex Empire has existed for 12,000 cycles, another counselor spoke. We have subjugated hundreds of species, all of whom eventually submitted to our superior numbers and determination. But we cannot fight what we cannot understand, Vex Morta concluded. Not without catastrophic losses. Reed detected something new in the alien's tone, something he hadn't heard from any Vex before. Fear. Then you accept our terms? Reed asked. We offer a counter-proposal, Vex Morta replied. A formal treaty of non-aggression with clearly defined boundaries, but also an exchange of knowledge. Reed raised an eyebrow. Exchange? Not your weapon systems, Vexisthar clarified quickly, but scientific cooperation in other areas. There is much our species could learn from each other. Reed considered this. It was more than he'd expected. Not just peace, but the possibility of cooperation. Still, caution was warranted. Such an arrangement would require significant trust-building measures, he said carefully. Agreed, Vex Morta nodded. We propose a neutral zone, jointly administered where scientific exchange could occur under strict protocols. The discussion continued for another hour, details negotiated, boundaries established. When Reed finally departed the chamber, he carried with him the framework for what would become known as the Vex Human Accord, the first peaceful agreement the Vex Empire had made in 12 millennia. Aboard the Defiant, the crew received the news with cautious optimism. Do you think they'll honor it? Harris asked as they prepared to depart Vex Prime. They will, Reed confirmed, because they understand what happens if they don't. The why? Defiant left Vex space without incident, its dimensional inversion drive once again folding reality around the vessel. In moments they were light years away, the first stage of their journey home complete. In the observation lounge, Reed stood alone, watching the stars streak by. Emma approached quietly, joining him at the viewport. Penny for your thoughts, Captain? Reed smiled slightly, just reflecting on what we accomplished. One ship against an empire, and we changed the course of galactic history. It wasn't just the ship, Emma pointed out. It was what the ship represented. Human ingenuity. Our ability to think differently. Reed nodded. That's what they feared most in the end. Not our weapons, but our minds. Our capacity to innovate. So what happens now? Emma asked. Now, Reed said, turning from the viewport. We return to Earth. We've shown the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with. We've earned our place among the stars. As the Defiant continued its journey homeward, the legend of the lone human, vessel that faced down an empire, began to spread throughout the galaxy. Other species, some long subjugated by the Vex, took note. The balance of power had shifted. In the decades that followed, humanity emerged from isolation, establishing diplomatic relations with dozens of civilizations. The Vex Empire, while still powerful, was forever changed by its encounter with the Defiant, becoming more cautious, less expansionist. And whenever a Vex commander considered breaking the accord, they remembered the human ship that appeared without warning above. Their homeworld, the ship that could have ended their civilization but chose negotiation instead. War had been their mistake. A single human ship had become their nightmare. But from that nightmare came a new dawn for the galaxy, one where innovation and diplomacy proved more powerful than conquest and subjugation. Captain Jack Reed never commanded another vessel. He didn't need to. His place in history was secure, the human who taught an empire to fear not superior numbers but superior thinking. And aboard the Defiant, displayed prominently in the officers' mess, a plaque bore the words that had become the ship's unofficial motto: "In the face of overwhelming force, humanity's greatest weapon has always been its mind."